And it should be
Okay,
up.
good evening. We have a wonderful evening session today with Miss Rachel Raucher, a PhD student with International Hindu University, who is taking the mandatory course on Sanatana Dharma 101. As part of the fulfillment of the course, is going to present her theme paper, Dharmic Life in Hindu Epics, Moral Guidance from Ramayana and Mahabharata. The students who have taken this course were so interactive in the class and they have all submitted their written reports. And as we come to the finale of this term, each student will have to present their work. In this regard, Rachel Raucher is the first student to present today on September 10, 2025. The presentation is on September 10, 2025. Rachel, it's all yours.
Okay. So this presentation explores how the Ramayana and Mahabharata exemplify the Dharmic life, and how they serve as functions for guides for righteous living. And so we'll be looking at what Dharma is, and we will examine how those models of righteousness show up in the Ramayana, and then we will look at how they show up in the Mahabharata. And then we'll look at some contemporary applications, some ways that we can take away this wisdom and embody it into our daily life. So, Dharma is this foundational concept, and it's of central importance to Hindu religion and philosophy. And it encompasses the order and the customs that make life and the universe possible. So it's all of natural law. So it's not just the behaviors that are appropriate, and it's the behaviors that are appropriate for maintaining that order, that natural law. And then we see these two Sanskrit epics being models and profound repositories for the Dharmic teachings. And they offer these idealized models of the righteous conduct, and they also present complex moral dilemmas. So it provides us with this roadmap to how to go about ethical living. And they also function as even more than this because they're these sacred texts that have this profoundly shaped Hindu culture, philosophy, and religious practice for thousands of years. Let me see if I can move this so you can see the screen better. Okay. So the Ramayana, it's typically attributed to Valmiki, and it introduces Rama. And Rama is introduced as the embodiment of Dharma. So if a perfect man were to exist, that would be Rama. And his life exemplifies this. It's unwavering adherence to duty, to truth, and to sacrifice. He accepts his exile. He prioritizes his father's honor over his own personal desires. And it's that acceptance and that honoring of responsibility that sets the stage for the rest of the epic. So it's that righteous conduct, which is that reflection of universal principles. So here we have truth and integrity, even when you're facing great sacrifice and personal cost. So that upholding of truth being a central tenet of dharmic living. And as I mentioned, that's even at the cost of self-sacrifice. So without seeking personal gain, you fulfill these responsibilities. And this reinforces the idea that there's this overarching natural law, and your individual righteousness has to uphold that natural law. Now, the wife also shows this. She exemplifies steadfast virtue. So even during captivity, she exemplifies this honoring and her loyalty and her self-discipline. And so here I have a quote: Dharma can be attained even by a skilled person only after observing various disciplines for his own purification and after great effort, subjecting himself to great strain and stress. So this is underscoring that Dharmic living can demand sacrifice. It demands discipline, and it's that discipline and sacrifice rather than pursuing immediate self-gratification. Now let's move to the second epic poem, the Mahabharata. Now this one's a little bit more complex because here we have more of a morally ambiguous world where even if you make the right decisions, even if you're righteous, you're presented with difficult choices. So it's not this simple good versus evil narrative, but it's a morally complex, and there's this conflict between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Okay, so here we have to see that Dharmic codes can be absolutely nuanced, that heroes sometimes cannot avoid violating certain principles, and that when you confront great evil, even righteous individuals may be forced to employ questionable tactics or compromise their own ideals. So that there's an enduring power to this epic, which lies in this unflinching examination of human nature and the recognition that the greatest battles are often fought not against external enemies, but within the human heart itself. So there's this conflict between duty and desire, justice and loyalty, and love and righteousness. And we see that play out in this story here. So there are some universal teachings that are embedded here. And there's Krishna's essential teachings about dharmic duties, and he delivers these messages to Arjuna. And these teachings reveal dharmic's cosmic dimension. So there's several key principles that reflect the universal natural law. So Krishna establishes Dharma as this cosmic principle, which requires constant protection and renewal. So whenever Dharma declines and the purpose of life is forgotten, I manifest myself on earth. I am born in every age to protect the good, to destroy evil, and to reestablish Dharma. So Krishna's teaching here positions Dharma as that eternal principle, which does require active maintenance across time and all cultures. And then Krishna's guidance emphasizes detached action as the solution to all the moral complexity that we see in the tale. Another quote is, "You have the right to work, but for the work's sake only. You have no right to the fruits of work. Desire for the fruits of work must never be your motive in working." So here we have this cornerstone of dharmic living, which aligns individual action with the universal principles, but it transcends this personal attachment. And the Gita also emphasizes individual responsibility through the principles of Savat Dharma. So it's better to strive in one's own Dharma than to succeed in the Dharma of another. So here we recognize that universal dharmic law manifests itself differently based on one's own individual nature, one's own individual circumstances, and one's own individual capabilities. So that requires some wisdom and some discernment rather than some rigid rule following. And I likened that to what I know from Ayurveda regarding the tendencies and the doshic tendencies and the way that we need to individualize the way that natural law embodies itself in our own physiologies. So I found for myself, some interesting parallels here between what I'm studying within Ayurvedic medicine and what is written here in this epic tale. Now, there are teachings here that we can take with us and embody within our life overall. So, some of the contemporary applications, and these applications can extend far beyond our own personal conduct, and we can bring them into organizational and societal ethics. So, Rama's prioritization of duty over personal desire provides a framework for ethical leadership in modern contexts, where leaders must often choose between popular decisions and the necessary ones. So, this principle can apply to corporate executives who must balance shareholder interests with environmental responsibilities, political leaders who must make those difficult decisions for long-term societal benefit rather than short-term popularity. And so our learning here is make those hard choices, the ones that follow natural law rather than that immediate self-gratification or that immediate short-term popularity. Then we have Krishna's teachings about detached action. That offers guidance for professionals across all fields. So, for instance, healthcare workers can perform their duties with dedication while maintaining emotional equilibrium, regardless of those outcomes beyond their control. And educators can focus on providing excellent instruction without becoming attached to specific student responses. So that's that detaching from the fruits of the labor, but engaging in the right action simply for its own sake without becoming overly attached to what might result for ourselves personally, but rather something that furthers the societal good and follows those natural law. So, in terms of social justice, we see this exploration of dharmic complexity, which provides a framework. And we see the demonstration that righteous action can sometimes require confronting systemic injustice. So we can have guidance here for how we can be activists and reformers and balance those idealistic goals with something that has some practicality to it to achieve true social justice. And we can also maintain dharmic principles while working within imperfect systems by mindfully applying wisdom, courage, and acceptance. Now we can have a common ground here for interfaith and intercultural dialogue. These dharmic principles reflect cosmic order. This isn't something that is culturally specific. It's natural law, it's dharmic order, it's cosmic order. And so we can take these teachings and use it to bridge across cultures, across eras. So it's not something that just becomes specific, but it can serve to help us bridge across these different ethical systems, these different religious traditions, and address those global challenges, such as environmental protection, for instance, or economic inequality, or international cooperation. So these epic poems serve as these enduring guides for dharmic living. They present both the idealized models of righteousness within the Ramayana and those complex moral scenarios that are presented in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. And then we can take those lessons of wisdom and discernment, understanding that Dharma operates not merely as this cultural or contextual principle, but again, it's that expression of absolute universal natural law governing cosmic order, governing all of human behavior. When we take that standpoint, we can understand why these narratives can resonate across diverse cultures, historical periods, because they reflect those fundamental principles that are inherent in the structure of reality. And so when I was reading through these, I was looking at them as heroes' journeys that we can use and employ within therapeutic interactions with clients. As a therapist, working with clients who are often struggling with very complex decisions, very complex that require that moral guidance, I saw ways that I could take and use these stories as analogies to help guide them through those complex decision-making processes that they were going through. And so that's what I'm going to do with the learnings that I took from this, is utilize it with my clients in that way, as well as utilize it for myself personally to help guide my decisions. And here is my reference sheet. Any questions?
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. And one takeaway message is all these epics have practical relevance. It is up to us to pick these ideals and the activities of characters and bring them to some practical relevance. As an Ayurvedic practitioner, you see that these epics are of great value to use the way how these heroes of the epic, like Ram and Sita, maintain their virtues in times of great agony. So, as a counselor, one can say that it's the grit, it's the
Yes.
determination. Like you said, that's clearly. So, to me, Ramayana is a straightforward text of epitomizing Dharma. Whereas, as the
Yes.
age went by, Mahabharata came in a more complex world of morality, as you say. So, when the nature of the world changes, progressing closely towards Kali, Lord Krishna gives us an option that without sacrificing Dharma, as long as you could take these principles along with practical constraints, without sacrificing the underpinning theme of Dharma, as long as the goals are based on shastric doctrines, it is okay. So the Lord gives us little bit freedom, like his deeds, saying that you have to always, the good should win over the evil. So in that case, if things became so complex and there are so many constraints, the ultimate goal is to make sure Dharma eventually wins. So it's okay to look into the constraints, whereas in a prior era, during the time of Ram, it was like a straight line. Dharma is what Dharma is. So those are the two things, because it of course we should practice Dharma in a straight line. But like you said, as the age progresses, the constraints become more and more. Instead of totally wavering away from Dharma, as long as you could make sure the outcomes are based on dharmic base, so you could maneuver around the constraints as exhibited by the heroes and Lord Krishna in Mahabharata. Beautifully said. This is a new learning for me. So it's one of the best presentation, Rachel. And not only that, in terms, you took two epics in a short time frame, you could tell that what is the difference between Ramayana and Mahabharata, and how these could be used even today as a practitioner of Ayurveda. How you think this helps to counsel people is a good thing. That's what I always say, that these are all very dynamic books. Particularly Ramayana for me is a living and a dynamic book. It's not a static text written some many years ago. So well done, and the way you presented with beautiful images, and as a research scholar, giving the references then and there in the text and then finally compiling them is how a presentation should be done. Well done. Pass.
So